All right, good afternoon, everyone. To start off, I want to start off maybe if do the past few weeks we've been back in Thread, and the overall theme of Thread this past few weeks has been about God's people divided. And to me, that's been a lot of different things that have been standing out to me during that time during it. And a word just kept popping out to me each week as we read through it. And maybe it's just something more that I'm dealing with. And as of course, anytime I preach to y'all, I can only preach about what's going on in my heart. And that one word is fear. Like, what better word divides people in our nation but fear? Right? Is that not a tool weaponized and used all the time to separate us from so many different groups, so many different peoples by attacking what we fear? And I don't know about you, but I was thinking about like, man, when was the first time I felt true fear, like cognizant of it? And the best thing I could think of, the furthest memory I could think of is my granny. And my granny, a great woman, she's no longer here, but she was a great woman, and she was one of the main disciplinary women in my life. And the thing is, at my granny's house, she had these, I don't know if these trees are even around, I don't know what you call them, a willow or a hickory tree, but it's those trees that are long and can like, and anytime she wanted to whoop me, she would say, boy, go outside and find me something so I can beat you with. Now, what type of psychology that does to you, to the man who has to go find his own tool to whoop himself with, is something else. But it was from that tree where you gotta rip it off, take off the branches, and bring it to her. And it can't be no flimsy or small little tree, because if not, she's gonna go outside and just take the whole tree to whoop me with. So I gotta make sure I get a good one. And the thing is, on my way to go get this weapon of my demise, it's a slow walk, right? It's just like I'm sure that might have been the first time I actually had an open dialogue with God, like, God, please allow just something to happen to where this doesn't have to be my life right now, right? Where I'm just like, let it snow, let it storm, let something happen to where this woman won't tear it up, because I know she's gonna tear it up. And it doesn't, once again, help once you get the branch, it's just, so you're just feeling it already before you go inside. And at that moment, that's what I recognized as fear. That I fear, not only do I fear this woman, but I fear this tree when I see it. So much, if I ever saw it again, I'm like, oh no, it has to die right now. We gotta get rid of this tree so it doesn't do to me what it did to other people or anything like that. Hold on, my shoe is untied. But that's what I think of when it comes to fear, right? And the thing is, fear can really ruin us if we're not careful. When I think of any virtue, love, loyalty, honesty, joy, it's easy to practice those things when it costs us nothing, when there is no sacrifice involved, when there is no risk. Practice any of those virtues, and there will come a time where you will be tested on how much you truly embody those virtues. And what happens a lot of times is that those virtues fall apart due to that one word, fear. But there is another word where all the virtues meet at, but to find out what that one word is, we're gonna have to continue down this sermon. And the title of today's message is The Heart Part 2. Now some of you might be where was Part 1. Part 1 was some months ago. If you don't know, this is a series I actually made for myself. For like a sermon series I made for myself when things are on my heart, things that are testing me, things that I'm really working on. It's something that I wrote for myself, and I choose when it's the appropriate time to present it to y'all. And I felt what better time to present part 2 than today to go along with what we've been learning with Thread when it comes to fear. And so if you don't remember, the last time when we talked about the heart part 1, we were using Naaman as 2 Kings, where him and this slave girl showed empathy to him because he expressed that he had leprosy, and she let him know about a man of God, which is Elisha, and how much she didn't allow the fact that this man enslaved her, took her away from her homeland, her family, but she still decided to show him empathy. And then, as I think the thing is right, we talked about, she didn't reduce him to a single story. But so today we're going to pick up after that now, after this girl tells him about this great prophet and what Naaman does after that. So that's where we're picking up at. So in 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 4 through 7. And it states, so Naaman went and told his master what the girl from the land of Israel had said. Therefore the king of Aram said, go, and I will send a letter with you to the king of Israel. Now, this is a big deal what the king of Syria is doing for Naaman. This is more than a polite gesture. Imagine needing a rare medical procedure that's only available in a foreign country and having the president personally contact the other country's leader on your behalf that you be given VIP treatment when you get there. And not only that, he's sending you amongst it on the Air Force One to get there. That's what's going on here with what the king of Syria is doing for Naaman. So this isn't just something slight that he's doing. This is a huge deal. So let's see how the king of Israel responds. Well, picking back up with Naaman. So he went and took with him 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, and it read, when this letter comes to you, know that I have sent you my servant Naaman for you to cure him of his skin disease. When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and asked, am I God, killing and giving life, that this man expects me to cure a man of his skin disease? Recognize that he is only picking a fight with me. So this is not going as smoothly as Naaman would expect it to go. He brings this letter, like they're letting the king of Israel know, like, hey man, we know your land is great, your God is great. My man Naaman wants to come on over and be healed by your God and this prophet that we're hearing about. But the king of Israel mistook this letter from the king of Syria as a threat. And I can only compare this moment when you accidentally look at somebody, and the thing is, maybe you looked at them too long, or you just accidentally blocked eyes with them, and now they step onto you on some, what you looking at? You're making a face at me, what you trying to do? And it's like, okay, bro, how did I even get in this? I wasn't even looking at you like that. But that's what's going on here, where the king of Israel has misinterpreted the tone of this letter. Kind of like maybe some of us misinterpret the tone of a text message or something. And just to give some context on why the king of Syria would even consider this letter as a threat, Syria and Israel shared a border, and the two countries were not always peaceful neighbors. Therefore, rather than reading the letter as a sincere request for help, the king of Israel thought they were trying to trick him and bring about war once again. That's what's going on here. And the root of what's causing this overreaction when I read this is fear. Due to the fear of this country that they have not always had the best relationship, it leads them to misinterpret the true meaning of this letter. Instead of seeing this as an opportunity to bear the character of his God that Naaman is asking to see, instead he allows years of insecurity, distrust, and political survivalism to creep into his heart and mind. And it caused him to perceive Naaman as a threat instead of one of God's own creations. It seems since fear sat in the throne of his heart, trusting God was exiled. And what makes the king of Israel respond so bad is because through the prophets that we've been reading about through thread, God said Israel was to serve as a light to the nations, and that people would come to this nation seeking healing from the Lord. In Leviticus 19:33-34, when an alien resides with you in your land, you must not oppress him. You will regard the alien who resides with you as the native born among you. You are to love him as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And Isaiah 56:6-7, as for the foreigners who join themselves to the Lord, to minister to him, to love the name of the Lord, and to become his servants, all who keep the Sabbath without desecrating it and who hold firmly to my covenant, I will bring them to my holy mountain and let them rejoice in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices will be acceptable on my altar, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. And there's dozens of Old Testament texts that repeat this same message. Israel exists to reveal God's glory, power, love, and healing to the nations. This is what makes the king of Israel's response to Naaman so tragic. Here was a foreigner having heard about the power of Israel God, genuinely and humbly seeking his healing. And this was a golden opportunity for the king of Israel to show like, hey, yeah, this is what our God is all about, Naaman. It's different from what you worship in Syria. This is what our God is all about. Even though you're not from this land, we're accepting you wholeheartedly to see our compassion, our kindness, and our healing. But instead, fear trumped calling. Fear trumped his calling. When we become afraid, we will quickly exchange our God-given call to bless others for a self-centered call to protect ourselves. Like ancient Israel, the church has not been given a mission of self-preservation, but one of divine revelation. The defense and growth of the church is in God's hands, not ours. Instead, we are called to open our hands as Jesus did and reveal the love of God by caring for the sinner, the stranger, the widow, the orphan, the foreigner. Nothing changes a person more quickly or dramatically than fear. Now, here's a more recent example to show you how fear has kind of impacted our nation. In a 2011 survey, evangelical Christians were the religious group in the U.S. most likely to say that the personal character of elected officials mattered. By 2016, evangelicals were the religious group most likely to say character didn't matter. So something changed between 2011 to 2016, a 5-year difference. And so what caused this sudden reversal of values? Journalist Tim Alberta asked one prominent pastor, and he answered with 2 words: under siege. He explained that evangelical Christians now feel afraid, persecuted, and threatened. Under those conditions, their previous commitment to certain public principles and ethical standards had either loosened or were firmly abandoned altogether. Like Israel king and Naaman's story, fear has caused them to forsake their calling to pursue safety instead. Thomas Aquinas, a theologian, says this: fear causes a contraction of the soul. Fear causes a contraction on the soul. He compared its effects on a person to a city under siege. In the ancient and medieval times, when an army attacked by a city, the inhabitants in the countryside would gather their resources and barricade themselves behind the city walls. From this contracted, inward-focused position, they will hunker down and hope that their food and water outlasted the attacking army's resources and the will to fight. And at times when we are afraid, we also contract. We pull back our resources, whether physical, emotional, economic, and moral. We go inward and we go into self-preservation. And we can only think about ourselves, our needs, and our survival, and nothing else. I think about when COVID struck and tissue paper was being sold out, right? Where you just see on the news people buying up tissue paper and you don't even know why they're buying out tissue paper, but you're like, well, they're doing it and I gotta buy it up too. Because fear, right? It was all about self-preservation and not looking out for one another. Instead of people seeing like there's plenty to go around, it's like, no, there's not enough, so I just gotta buy it all and hunker down. Fear caused the contraction of the soul. And think about how certain media outlets or pundits we listen to use propaganda to fuel the fire of your fear. They say things: the church is under attack. Hide, hunker down. They're out to get your kids. Hide them away, stow them away. They're out to get you. There's an agenda. They're trying to ruin the church. They're trying to take God out of everywhere. And then we hear that and we say, they're right. So we self-preserve and think we need to do everything we can to defend God's church when God does not need us at all to defend his church. His church will stand whether we are here or not. It's not up to us to defend his church. It's up to us to be the people that bear God's character. That's what we're called to. Just like these shells, we can pull back all the virtues God has instilled in us because of fear. And as Aquinas said, fear is such a powerful emotion for humans that when we allow it to take us over, it drives compassion right out of our hearts. We start judging people. We start demonizing them. We avoid them. Instead of showing love, we want to fight back. When the church feels under siege, our instinct is not to live with God, but to fight for God, as if he needs us to fight for him. As if he couldn't wipe this place away if he wanted to. He's like, I created you. What could you possibly do for me? How could you possibly defend me? And that's not something that we even see from Jesus' character. He just goes about sharing the compassion and love of his God. He's not trying to defend every person that's debating. And the thing is, when we're gripped by fear, it doesn't just shrink our perspective, it shrinks our capacity to reflect God. Give to the one who asks. Forgive those who sinned against you. Turn the other cheek. Love your enemy. Those commands seem like nonsense to the soul contracted by fear. We distance ourselves from those we can show kindness to. We hold ourselves back from talking to someone that could use a friend. We hide who we are. There will be many voices that are seeking to make us afraid out there, to use our fear to make us something that we're not, to contract our souls, and to prevent us from following the generous and self-giving way of Jesus. And some of those voices will even claim to be Christian. But fear is never the way of Christ, because God has not given us a spirit of fear, but one of power and love. So let me ask you these questions. What fear most often shapes your reactions? Is it rejection, failure, loss of control, being misunderstood? What fear most often shapes your reaction? Then the next one, what are you grasping to preserve? What are you hunkering down, pulling back on, and saying, no, I gotta keep it to myself? Is it your reputation, your security, your identity? What is it that you're grasping to preserve? And then the next one, what fear-based decisions are you justifying as wise or responsible? What fear-based decisions are you justifying as wise or responsible? Avoiding confrontation? Well, I gotta keep the peace, so I'm not gonna go confront them on that. That's the wise thing to do. Why would I want to disrupt anything? So I'm just going to avoid confrontation. Keeping you or your kids from certain type of people. Well, you know, bad company corrupts good character, so I just can't allow them to be around people like that. So I'm going to keep me and them away. Or is it control? Protecting our control. Like, hey, I'm just trying to protect my schedule, protect my time, protect this, protect that. Like, I got to be wise with these things. But it's just protecting our control over our life. Once again, like it says in 2 Timothy 1, chapter 1, verses 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but one of power, love, and sound judgment. Sound judgment is very key. And when I think about how the Bible brings up fear, perhaps this is why do not be afraid or other variations of do not fear is the most common command in the Bible, occurring about over 100 times even throughout the Bible. Jesus says it about 12 times to his disciples. But if you're anything like me, no matter how many times you read it or hear about do not be afraid, I don't know about you, but I'm a big skeptic sometimes. It's like when I think about, some of you may be skeptics of Jesus and his miracles, right? Like him turning water into wine or walking on water or whatever like that. But I get skeptical a lot of times about when the disciples are on the boat and that huge storm is happening and Jesus is just asleep chilling. And he's not afraid whatsoever. And he's looking at his disciples confused when they're like, Jesus, don't you care if we drown? And he's just like, what's the big issue? And I'm like, dude, what do you mean what's the big issue? You're on a rickety boat and this big storm is about to swallow you up. And the thing is, though, for us, we see the wind and the waves of the world and we perceive real danger. We have rational fears that come from living in a world where terrible things have happened. And when it happens, we ask the same question like the disciples, Jesus, don't you care if we drown? We have real fears. Some of us have dealt with death from somebody too soon, betrayal, divorce, adultery, a parent walking out on you, harmful relationships, serious health issues, family dynamics. The world just seems to keep changing on you. There are so many things that contribute to our fear. And so, of course, when someone says Jesus has you covered, don't worry about it, of course, me and you were skeptical because it doesn't seem like this fear is going nowhere and this danger is going nowhere. And what also makes this statement of do not be afraid so challenging is that fear is actually unavoidable. When we experience intense fear or stress, it triggers the amygdala in our brain. It's sometimes referred to as the lizard brain because of its basic and primitive function. The amygdala is the fear center of the brain that's responsible for the flight or fight survival instinct. And once active, the amygdala overrides other parts of our brain, and for good reason. When you're in mortal danger, you need to react quickly to survive. Like, it's great for, like, if you're being chased by a bear, you probably want to be able to react very quickly on what to do in that situation, if you've ever been chased by a bear. But the problem for us is that our amygdala is even activated even when there is no real danger. It's just if we perceive that there's danger. Our fears can be easily manufactured and manipulated, and when wielded skillfully, they can cause individuals and entire groups to behave irrationally. I think about the Salem witch trials from back in the day, right? If you don't know, it's about, they thought all these women there were witches, and they were like, hey, if you don't drown, you're not a witch. But if you don't drown, or if you do drown, you're not a witch. But if you don't, then you are. So the logic and all that, I guess it made sense to them, but it's like, well, an innocent person just died. But that was irrational fear, where they just thought all these women were witches and did the most ridiculous things when they tried them. But that's what fear can do. It can cause people to act irrational. And we may look at these people like, man, they're so crazy, but think of how many things we've done in our country and how we've reacted to certain things irrationally because of fear. Fear shrinks us to mere animals, instinctual, brutal, and selfish. In such a state, it becomes difficult to reflect the image of God. With the amygdala overriding the rest of our brain, we will not display the higher qualities of the Creator like reason, compassion, and justice. So how can God command us to not feel afraid when our bodies are designed for it and we do not consciously choose it? Well, context matters when God commands his people to not be afraid. I'll use Joshua 1:9, a very popular one. Haven't I commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. In most cases, do not be afraid is not a rebuke here, but to reassure instead. God is not condemning us for feeling afraid. Rather, he is saying you don't need to be afraid. What you think is dangerous is truly not. What you perceive as a threat won't actually harm you. In other words, this command is not about our emotions, but it's about our perception on how much that we trust in God in this moment. I think about, if you ever seen the movie Dune, or maybe you read the book back in the day, but there's a scene in Dune, the first one to be exact, where they say, I must not fear, fear is the mind killer. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer, right? Fear makes us see things incorrectly. And this is precisely what we see in Israel's king. He receives Naaman's letter from the king of Syria, and fear made him irrational and ungodly. Rather than reflecting the power, generosity, and compassion of the Lord toward his neighbor, the king was self-consumed and uncaring. That means for God's people, fear is not just a mind killer, but it's also a mission killer. Because God can be setting the mission right before us, but our fear holds us back from ever participating in it. He's serving us a golden opportunity to reflect his character to somebody, but then our fear overtakes us. It impacts our discernment, and media can even use things like fear of loneliness to settle for friendships or dating relationships you would never settle for back then. You see all your friends getting married, going off, and you're like, man, I'm like 32, and what's going on? So let me just make this online dating site and see what happens here. And let me entertaining people that I would never entertain, or let me meet up with this coworker that's been showing me attention, or this barista. Let me start entertaining people I would never entertain because I'm so scared of being lonely. My parents bring it up to me so much. They say, when are you gonna find somebody? When are you gonna give me a grandkid? I can't go back to another Thanksgiving by myself. So if they just can find the book of Matthew in the Bible, I'll just settle for that. Fear can impact our discernment and our standards so much. It can even cause your family dynamic to never change. You never want to be open or real about what's going on in your household because I don't want people to perceive us a certain way. I want to keep people, and the thing is sometimes we think people think we're perfect when people already know we're not perfect, but we just want to keep fooling ourselves with the facade like, hey, I got to keep coming in like I'm perfect. I can't tell people what's really going on in this house. Because if I do, you're gonna judge me, you're gonna judge my family, and we're gonna be a laughingstock. So I'll never reach out for help. I'll never go talk to that one couple because that one couple, they're so perfect. And I just know they're gonna judge me if I get with them. I just know it. I just see it when they get on stage or when I see them in the pews, they're only with perfect people, not with people like my family. You see what fear can hold us back from? And sometimes, even being a people pleaser, right? Where you become a people pleaser due to the fear of never being enough. I just gotta go with the flow at all times because if I try to stick out or say something opposite, they're not gonna wanna be my friend. And if they're not my friend, then who will be my friend? So a lot of times we people please due to the fear of we just don't see our value and we just don't think we're enough. And so it's like, hey, if you want to keep these relationships, you just got to keep doing what they're doing because of fear, once again, of loneliness and just not being enough. And sometimes we're also passing down our fears instead of our faith to our kids, our peers, and coworkers. That's also what happens a lot of times. Your kids are just watching your fears. They don't ever see faith. They know what you're afraid of. They know what you don't like. But they never see a faithful response from you. Your coworkers and peers, they see you respond the same way they respond to things on TV or on a podcast. They never see you have that godly, compassionate response. See, a lot of times we are just passing down our fear instead of our faith. But fear does not have to rule over us like it can tend to do. If you remember at the top of the message, I said there's one word that can overcome all this, where all virtues come towards. And it's actually back in Joshua 1:9, where it says, haven't I commanded you, be strong, and the word here is courageous. I know I thought I was gonna blow your mind, but it's just courage. No. See, as we go through the valleys of life and experience more pain, we will struggle to reconcile our trial with Jesus' teachings. But I pray that we resist the easy, wide roads of disillusionment and deception. I hope we find the grace to be real about the gap that exists between our beliefs, and the world we perceive. And this kind of honesty requires courage. A lot of times, courage is the beginning of faith. If we go back to 2 Kings, that's the difference between Naaman and the king of Israel. Consider the humility it required for Naaman. As the text describes him, he was a great man and he was a commander of the Aram army. And here he is now willing to bow down and do whatever it takes to go to this foreign land to go hear about a God that he's never believed in. That takes a lot of courage. Going into an existing land that you have been at war with even before and saying, you know what, I'm just gonna go. And you might say, well, Naaman's courage was born because of desperation. He was desperate. Well, most courage is born from that. It is our desperation. And yet again, he is seeking, and the thing is, eventually his courage is rewarded. In 2 Kings chapter 5, verses through 8, Elisha hears about this. When Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent the message to the king. Why have you torn your clothes? He's like, dude, what are you doing? Have him come to me and he will know there is a prophet in Israel. Elisha agrees to meet him and later on he's healed. However, the king of Israel played no role in Naaman's transformation. He missed out on witnessing God do something amazing. See, fear is not only a mind killer, but it's also a joy stealer. I believe that is why God brings up to not be afraid so much. He knows that courage is the prerequisite for not only joy, but for every virtue, just as fear is the one that steals them all. C.S. Lewis quotes this: courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point, which means at the point of highest reality. Once again, like I said at the beginning, attributes like love, honesty, loyalty are easy to possess when they cost nothing. But at some point, every virtue we practice demands a price. Love will ask for sacrifice. Loyalty will require risk. Honesty will bring loss. And when these moments arise, our ability to bear these virtues will first require us to be brave and have courage. And courage is the seed from which every other virtue grows. And seeds, of course, are usually not seen while they're growing. They're very invisible at the time. And the reason why I bring that up is because courage can be found in very subtle ways. Because when me and you think of courage, we think of somebody maybe rescuing a cat from the tree or going into a burning building or something like that and rescuing somebody or lifting a car off, something like that. But courage is also in very subtle battles by ordinary people. Because you know why? It takes courage not to have the last word in an argument. Ain't that the truth? Like you like, oh, I got a good one too. I got a good one. It's stewing in me. I gotta let it out. I'm about to get him with this one. But it takes courage not to get that last word in. It takes courage not to reply to that post that you have a steaming response to. It takes courage to practice self-control in that situation and really rethink it. It takes courage to persevere in an extremely difficult relationship and stay connected to that person. When you just want to throw your hands up, I give up, there's no helping this person, it takes courage to persevere and stay in the fight with that person. It takes courage. It takes courage to get out of bed when overwhelmed by grief. When life has just been knocking you upside your head day in and day out. And all you just want to do is, man, I just want to get away from everyone. I just want to stay here and isolate myself. It takes courage to get out of that bed. It takes courage to say the hard but honest truth to those you love. It takes courage to show compassion to someone who's never shown it back to you. It takes courage to realize you're not a mistake and you're not defined by your mistakes. that you're not defined by your performance or your failures. That takes courage. And it takes courage to ask for help for your family. Once again, going back to how perception can be in the world that we live in where it's like you got to figure it all by yourself, it takes courage to say, hey, you know what? We need help. It does. And as all these noble choices come from the hidden seed of courage. You may be like, man, those are not grandiose whatsoever, but those go a long way in our discipleship. I think about, honestly, just right before service started, Albert kids, Maximus and Kiana, spoke to me. And you're saying, what's the big deal about that? Well, he gave them the challenge, like, hey, go talk to somebody, ask them 2 questions. And if fear can contract you to be like, well, this is an adult, this is the preacher, like, I'm not gonna ask him, like, oh, he doesn't wanna be bothered by me, he's probably gotta worry about his sermon. Fear can cause so many different things, but those young middle schoolers had courage and spoke up. And it may not like me putting the spotlight like on them like that, but it just spoke to me when they spoke up like that. And that goes such a long way. We think, man, what? That's whatever, just talking to somebody is whatever, but that's really not. Because it's easy to not talk to nobody. Trust me, I know. It's easy I can easily go in the store in and out and not talk to nobody. So that stuff, that type of training right there, that type of courage goes a long way. It's so simple, but it goes a long way. And so as you face these ordinary trials of life, you may think they will be overcome by gaining more patience or discipline, which that can help. But it's more to that. The first prayer should be that God, can you give me courage? Because I think about this in John 16, verse 33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. You will have suffering in this world. Be courageous. I have conquered the world. Be courageous. I have conquered the world. See, we don't overcome fear by trying harder. We overcome fear by living with the one who's already overcome the world. And I'll use this story to help explain this word, courage. There's this guy back in the day, his name was Henry Nouwen. And he became fascinated by this German trapeze group. And while he went to go see them, during their flying and spinning, he saw more than an exciting show. He saw an illustration of our life with God. I know he's just that type of spiritual guy where he's at a circus and he's seeing illustrations for God in that. And Nouwen recognized that the flyer, the person soaring through the air, was not the star of the trapeze show. The flyer's maneuvers are only possible because he fully trusts that he will be caught. Everything depends on the catcher. Nouwen saw the connection to the life of faith. I can only fly freely when I know there is a catcher to catch me. Nouwen continued with this quote, if we are to take risk to be free in the air and life, we have to know there's a catcher. We have to know that when we come down from it all, we are going to be caught. We are going to be safe. The great hero is the least visible. Trust the catcher. See, the courage to obey God is proportional to how safe we believe we are. In Naaman's story, the sense of safety is what the king of Israel lacked. His fear prevented him from courageously helping his neighbor and from fulfilling God's purpose for Israel. I suspect his vision of God and his goodness was deficient. Maybe the king had forgotten the stories of how the Lord had rescued his ancestors from Egypt with signs and wonders, and all the other stories that came from Moses and Joshua and the people before him. Maybe he just forgot these stories. And without being grounded in these stories, an assurance the danger of his enemies filled his imagination more than the benevolence of God. For the Christian, the New Testament takes this assurance even further. The cross is where we witness Jesus' ultimate surrender of control to the Father. In death, Jesus released the bar to fly through the air and trust in himself entirely into the Father's hands. And his resurrection is proof that God caught him and that he will catch us too. Therefore, we are free to truly fly, to trust God by loving both our neighbors and our enemies, no matter how much the world threatens us. In Isaiah 43, 1-2, it states, "Now this is what the Lord says, the one who created you, Jacob, and the one who formed you, Israel. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and the rivers will not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be scorched, and the flame will not burn you." See, we can all have courage, not because we feel strong, but because God is faithful. And I know for me, fear was something that I've been struggling with, maybe not even just recently, but for the past year. And it's kind of strange when people ask you certain questions sometimes, right? But there was a consistent question from just different people all the time when I would talk to people. So it wasn't even like everybody was in on it. It just seemed to keep popping up every time. But sometimes people would always ask me like, "Man, you and Risa, you've been in the youth and family for so long. What's next?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I ain't never thought about that. Like, I'm kind of content where I'm at. I'm chilling. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And a lot of times, the thing is, though, it will keep coming up. The question of what's next, what's next, what's next for you? And I just didn't want to answer it because the fear of the unknown. And I don't know about that for you, but a lot of times the fear of the unknown can scare me. Whether you're just like, I don't know what to expect, whether you feel inadequate, or whether it's just like, I'm comfortable. Like, once again, I don't think about going somewhere else because y'all are all I know. I've been with this church since 7 years old. Like, some of y'all have been my children ministry teachers, right? Like, y'all have seen me grow from here to up here, right? When they first announced me as a youth leader, you're like, what is little Jamal about to tell me, right? And so this is all I've known all my life, this comfort, you in the South. This is what I've always known. And the fear of the unknown scares me a lot of times. Because it's just like, this is what's comfortable to me. This is what I like. This is what I enjoy. But also I have to realize, once again, fear is not just the mind killer, but it's the joy stealer. Because there can be so many things out there that I just don't know that God wants me to witness, that he wants me to be part of, right? And I don't know what that is for you, but there's a lot of unknown out there where you just like, man, I don't know if I can take this next step. I don't know if I can do this opportunity that God's presented to me. I don't know if I can talk to this person. But man, you gotta think about, man, what's the joy that God is trying to set before me? What's the joy he's trying to set for me and my family? What's the joy he's trying to set for me and my spouse? What's the joy he's trying to just set for me and my walk with God? I can't let the fear of the unknown hold me back from that. And with Jesus, right, to close out here for communion, this is the kind of courage we see in Jesus, because he felt fear too. Jesus acknowledged the world was messy and sometimes nightmares are real. When he was arrested, he called it the hour when darkness reigns. Yet Jesus didn't contract inward to protect himself. When betrayed by Judas in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus did not flee. When guards with weapons seized him, Jesus did not resist. When falsely accused of crimes, Jesus remained silent. When beaten and mocked by the Roman soldiers, Jesus did not retaliate. When nailed to the cross, Jesus forgave his executioners. The spectators hurled insults at him, and they thought they were witnessing the death of a soft, humiliated, weak man. But in fact, they were watching the most incredible display of courage in history. They were watching the bravery that becomes possible when a person sees the world as God does and discovers their fear, while deeply felt, does not have to determine their choices. In Hebrews 12, verse 2, it says, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy that lay before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. This explains how Jesus was able to display courage in the form of patience, silence, perseverance, and forgiveness. He trusted that the terrible things happening to him were not the end of the story. Jesus believed that death would not have the final word. When all was said and done, he knew everything would be made right. This is the reason he can say to us, do not be afraid. Whatever trial's going on in your life, it doesn't have to have the last word. Whatever betrayal, whatever hard situation, whatever divorce, whatever person walking out on you, whatever person that has let you down, whatever situation that has attacked you, it does not have to have the last word, because Jesus has conquered the world, so we can be courageous. Maybe it's time to just trust the catcher. Let us pray. God, I thank you for being someone that we can trust to catch us. Someone that we can take full risk with, someone that we can completely throw our trust to and allow us to not be afraid, but to be courageous. Because we saw your son do the most courageous act of history when he got on that cross and died for our sins. For people that did not deserve it, but he had the courage to do it anyways. And I pray we don't take it for granted. I pray we don't allow fear to contract our soul, to not imitate it. But I pray that we can imitate that same courage as well, not because of how strong or great we are, but because of how faithful you are, and we know that you will continue to catch us. And as always, God, all the glory goes to your Son, who shed his blood for forgiveness of our sins. In Jesus' name, amen.